this is where we are lucky enough to work. Our core area is the beautiful peninsula of Acres Point on Stewart Island, Rakiura. About 86% of Rakiura is conservation land. We don't work in the national park at all. We don't work on the conservation land that's managed by the Rakiura Māori Land Trust either. We work pretty much exclusively in the privately owned township. So you can see we're lucky enough to be working in a really beautiful area of some modified, but also some reasonably unmodified remnant forest. Mixed podocarp is our forest type. We formed in 2003, and our actual initial focus was waste minimisation. At that time, the town dump was closing, and there wasn't a really good solution. But luckily, we were formed with a really wide vision and goal. Our goal is to pursue projects that will enhance both our environment and our community, which has meant that we've been able to be a bit of a conservation Swiss Army knife. So whatever it is that we feel is needed or we're particularly passionate about at a given moment, we can pick up on. And that's kind of the theme of the talk of what I wanted to get at today, and what I thought might be perhaps of interest to other groups, is the way in which the different bits of conservation that we're doing work together and allow us to kind of be stronger and to bring people in as well, I think, to the weed control space, because we know it's not always the first thing that people come to in conservation. For some people it is, but for a lot of people, they get into conservation, I think, because they have that love for native species, which we share. You know, our vision is creating an environment where it's appropriate to reintroduce tiaki saddleback. So that's our big goal. We're mostly volunteers, but we do, for more than 10 years, we have been able to have some staff. The amount of staff that we've been able to have has really gone up and down and fluctuated over time. Do you want to flip to the next slide, please, Emma? So our core projects here, so we do trapping. We're trapping, we started on 210 hectares of that peninsula at Acres Point, and here we've got Owen carrying a couple of DOC 150s. Weed control has always been part of what we do, and we also have a native plant nursery that we actually started together with the Department of Conservation, and it really grew out of our weed work. A lot of our weeds that we're trying to deal with, obviously, like everywhere else, are garden escapees. So the idea with the native plant nursery is that we would be able to offer people something positive that they can put in their garden that's not going to be problematic, especially if you're coming along saying, oh, well, I'd like to take this plant out and this plant out. It's really good to be able to give with one hand and take away with the other and say, oh, but you know, why don't you plant this instead? Our native plant nursery actually runs on a solely donation basis, so we don't charge for our plants, we just request a donation, and it's really well organised and lovely and centrally sited at Trail Park. You'll notice that it's got quite a fortress appearance to it. That's because we have quite a lot of deer roaming the area. Sadly, the deer don't seem to eat the Darwin's Barberry though, which is a bit of a bummer. Next slide, please, Emma. Our values: community involvement and community initiatives. Everything we do comes from our kind of community base. We're always trying to be as sustainable as we can. And we understand that the environment is foundational to the way we live in this beautiful place. We're also very much into evidence-based conservation, and we work together with honesty and integrity. Next, please, Emma. So this is one of the plants that we're in a pretty big fight against, Darwin's Barberry. Some people may know it. It's very distinctive. I believe you can actually make a jam out of the berries. We don't encourage that. I suppose the cooking probably takes care of them. So it is identified by Environment Southland, who are our regional authority, in the Regional Pest Management Plan under with a status of progressive containment. There's also a couple of plan objectives relating to buffer zones for the Fiordland National Park and the Rakiura National Park. And really, that's where we started as well. Our goal here is not only, by controlling Darwin's Barberry, is not only to enhance our environment around the bay, but also really to stop the spread of this weed into the national park. I don't know if people out there are regularly dealing with it or not, but it being an ex-hedging plant, it's a light excluder, so it excludes light from the native plants, and it would also grows in very low light conditions itself, so it's really happy in a quite thick understory, and then will come away and kind of smother and light exclude all the native podocarp species, such as the remu and the tree fuchsia and the miro and the totara.
So I'm assuming with those berries that the birds really like it?
Yeah, birds love it. And it's delicious.
And it spreads easily by the birds?
Yep, it spreads easily by birds, and it also has suckers and runners.
Oh.
So it'll spread quite naturally itself. We control it with Vigilant, but it, you have to revisit your sites repeatedly because it has a tendency to kind of come back. Oh, good to see that somebody's controlling it up in Canterbury. I feel like when I drive around the South Island, I do see quite a bit of it, and I was quite disturbed to see quite a lot on a recent drive up to Milford, into Milford Sound. There's quite a lot in the last sort of farms before the Eglinton Valley. The history of the control of Darwin's Barberry on Rakiura is that it was originally done by the Department of Conservation together with Environment Southland. 2017 came along, and as often happens, in the swing of political fortunes, it was, instead of giving the Department of Conservation funding to do it, they decided they would give a community group funding to do it. So funding was made available under the War on Weeds program. People might remember the War on Weeds.
Yeah.
2017 to 2020, where we were. We partnered with ES, started hiring staff. You can see two of our teams. So we would have a seasonal team of three or four field rangers and one project manager working for 3 months, and grid searching. So grid searching, everyone probably knows, but you're standing no more than a metre apart, walking slowly in a line, visually searching by eye for the plant, and then controlling every plant you find, marking every plant you control, and recording your track with a GPS so we can see for the future which areas have been covered. Obviously pretty intensive, and we required access to quite a few landowner plots. There's only, we were working probably across sort of nearly probably 1,000 hectares.
Good boy. Good boy. Good
boy. So this was 2020. We controlled 113 hectares, 445 adult plants. 2019, 1,000 adult plants. 2018, 937 adult plants. So you can see the peak of effort there. And this is how that work played out. Basically, we had the area we wanted to control divided up into blocks. What you're seeing, can people see those all right?
Are you showing us the blocks so we can see the pre-jobs for nature?
Oh, okay.
slide?
Your it hasn't.
Oh, yeah. One more.
Yep.
We're still on the pre-jobs for nature.
I might give it a minute.
Okay.
I think it's just a bit of a lag.
Someone was just commenting on the slices of wood that people are holding up. That's really impressive. So that it's not a simple task of cutting and pasting, is it?
Oh no, initially we were getting really big trees, you know, enormous, like trees that were bigger than your thigh. So you're sawing then and then you're pasting, and it does have a bit of a tendency to sort of coppice effectively, to throw out a shoot again from that root. So we're always wanting to revisit them. One of our staff actually got into making coasters and decorative items, wood burnt items from Darwin's Barberry, because it has a very unusual kind of yellow colour to it. Has that screen changed for you guys?
No. The first time it flashed up momentarily. So whatever you did the first time. Oh, yep. That's changed. Yep.
Cool. So this is the area we're covering. This is the peninsula we were looking at, and the township.
It's missed the map, Shona. It's gone to the next slide.
Okay. Maybe we can't have the maps.
It doesn't like it for some reason. Interesting.
There they are.
No. Sorry, God. Now?
Yep.
Good. So there's a color coding system in there for, obviously, the yellows are the tracks that we've grid searched, and different plant sizes are indicated by different colors and different seasons, I think, as well. So this is sort of 4 years of work, really. And this is all, again, with that aim of stopping it getting into the national park. So the national park is not very far away from where these kind of maps are. It's probably a couple of maybe 10 Ks. All right, so then we were lucky enough in 2021 to get some Jobs for Nature funding that allowed us to employ 17 staff for 2 years, and those staff were doing spending 1/3 of their time on predator control and 2/3 of their time on weed control, which is, I think, reasonably unprecedented. I'm not sure. Most of the other Jobs for Nature projects seem to be either weeds or predators. I haven't heard of many that were doing both, but maybe somebody could correct me in the comments if they know of others. And again, the Jobs for Nature thing, the focus there was bringing people into conservation, bit of economic stimulus. What we found, so what our experience was that we had quite a lot of younger people, not exclusively younger people, but we had quite a lot of younger staff. People came to the work because they were interested in conservation, but mostly what they knew about conservation was about predator control. For most of them, weed control was not something that had really entered into their worldview. And it was a really good opportunity for us to educate people that actually ecological restoration is just as much about controlling pest plants as it is about controlling pest animals. So we found that was a good way to develop people's ecological awareness, I guess. And hopefully we've sent them all out into the world as advocates for controlling Darwin's Barberry. We were also really lucky to have one of our team leaders was somebody who'd worked for the Department of Conservation and Regional Authorities as a weed specialist and absolutely knew her stuff. So hats off to them. So our Jobs for Nature project was 2 years long. We had some great advice, and we were able to speed up that work that we'd started under the War for Weeds. So the war on weeds work, if we had kept it, the work that we did for Jobs for Nature, allowed us to cover what would have taken 10 years under the War for Weeds funding in 2 years. So we completed weed control and grid searching over 1,213 hectare and removed upwards of 400,000 plants. And that was all grid search. I'll say a little bit about what the photo that accompanies this, because it's one of my favorites. This is what we call a sit-down spot. This is where you've got a real infestation of juvenile plants and you're just sitting, sometimes for days, there, hand pulling.
Shona, it hasn't changed over.
Oh.
There we go. Oh. Now we're back to the next. Try again. There we go. And it's gone to the next one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, that's it now?
Yeah.
Sorry about this, team. The other thing, the other reason why I thought it was might be of interest to people to highlight the synergy between predator control and rat and weed control is this is an example. So obviously our Jobs for Nature project wrapped up a year ago, and we've gone back to 1 to 2 staff members. But this map, the satellite images on the map show our predator control lines, our trapping lines, where we've got traps placed. But because of the work that we do with weed control, we also bring our volunteers on a kind of journey where they find out, where we teach them what the weeds to look out for are. And so every time they're walking their rat line to check their rat traps, they're also now in a state where they're like, oh, if I see a barberry, I'm either going to try and control it, I'm going to try and hand pull it, or I'm going to mark it as a site of interest for us to come back to later. And I think that that's incredibly valuable, to have that many extra eyes and kind of minds looking for your target species has allowed us to do a lot more work and put us in a better position. Alrighty, so this hopefully you can see the nice snazzy video. Yes?
Yes, looking good.
Cool. So this is our work over the Jobs for Nature period. So you can see they were moving around. The orange dots are plants that have been controlled, and the yellow marks are tracking. So that's that GPS tracking. We've been lucky to have people involved with the project for quite a while who have been quite good at GIS. And I think it's also part of what's given Environment Southland, the local authority, a lot of faith in us, is our ability to record where we've been and to have a really good data set of what our effort is. So you can see there's some fairly big numbers of plants controlled there. So we're pretty proud of that work and what it's meant. So what is next for us? Can people see the new slide?
No, we can't.
Sorry, let's just try again.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Obviously, as everyone's really probably aware at the moment, it's a really difficult funding climate. Funding is hard to come by. So this work has been funded since 2017. This is the first year that we don't have at least a summer team funded, which is a bit of a blow. But we've applied and applied, but we just haven't been able to find any money. And the very, very sympathetic staff at Environment Southland, who are just as passionate about this stuff, have also, been unfortunately kind of constrained in their spending by the desire to not increase rates, which is understandable. So if anyone would like to give us some money to do some Darwin's barberry control, that would be great. I think the bigger question of funding for conservation sector is massive. I think we need to work out how to build a better relationship maybe with corporate or to get into another source of funding, because the pool seems to me to be getting smaller and smaller, and we all seem to be trying to still fish into it. The good news is that now we're really focusing, we're being able to focus more on what I describe as hard to reach sites. So that picture on the left hand side shows a high ropes team from the Kapiti Coast who come down and visit us periodically. We have a sort of a quid pro quo arrangement where we source their accommodation, fund their travel, take them out fishing and for dinner at the pub, and for that they send a team of 3 or 4 people, sometimes more, to do 2 or 3 days of roped up cliff work for us, because the trees that the remaining trees we need to get now are in sites where we can't, you know, specialist skills and rope ability to actually get at them. We're doing a little bit of that work at the moment. Obviously biocontrol is an exciting kind of frontier. So Environment Canterbury, Go Environment Canterbury, applied to use a rust fungus and a flower weevil. This is very exciting for us. I think that is progressing well. However, it may not be a great solution. It may not end up that we actually have the high density of Darwin's barberry that would be able to sustain a biocontrol species. We may have done too much, ironically. What's happening in the Rakiura National Park? So the Department of Conservation is still maintaining a watching brief and they do periodic searches, but again, they're in a very restricted funding environment, with it being looking to be restricted more. We work really closely with the Department of Conservation Weeds team on the island. They taught us everything we know, basically, and kind of got us fired up with the passion for this work. So it's always good to go back to them, but it is a difficult environment for central government, and want to acknowledge that. And I mean, containment is what written in the regional management plan, which goes till 2029 at least. We would love the eradication, then consider a biosecurity regime being reintroduced. So that's my presentation. Folks. Any questions?
First of all, thank you so much, because that is really impressive. Your team are amazing and have done amazing work over that time. It just shows what funding can do. So yeah, that's incredible. Brilliant. Has anybody got some questions? Make sure you use the raise your hand function. So great.
I'll
Ian.
get someone to put those on to me, because I'm just trying to return to the meeting.
Okay. Ian.
Great talk. Thank you, Shona. Very inspiring. I'm Ian Morrison from Dunedin. We've got a small Barberry busting group in Papadawai in the Catlins, and we're very proud of what we've done with a small group, because you can eradicate it. I'm really quite impressed by the fact that the seed bank is very limited. So if you get rid of it in an area, there's very little new spread into it. And I don't think the birds fly very far, a little bit, but not much. So questions, have you got any favourite sprays that work on some of the smaller plants? And what about the cheapest stump control? You mentioned Vigilant, but that's a more expensive product on the market, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't spray at all. I should say we did put, I forgot to mention that we put those 17 jobs for nature staff as part of that project through both Grow Safe training, and part of that was a spray component. We are starting to look at spray as possibly an option, given that we're quite on funding, but we haven't used a spray yet. And we experimented with other products, but we came back to Vigilant because we want to do the job properly.
Did you have evidence that some of those other products weren't as good?
It was more. It was reasonably anecdotal, but our feeling was that they weren't as effective as Vigilant, and that it was a sort of a, we were better to. It was a sort of a, you're better to spend a little bit of money up front rather than spend a lot more money on chasing the thing for longer.
And use petrol, electric chainsaws, hand saws?
Handsaws.
wherever you don't use electric chainsaws. They're super.
Oh, with those staff, it was more about the health and safety, and we weren't putting through people necessarily through chainsaw tickets. We had, being DOC funding, we had to be quite careful to follow the same rules that the Department of Conservation did, which was not necessarily how you and I would operate in our own backyard.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Nigel, you had a question.
Yeah, hi, I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just do one at a time. With the funding, I'm just wondering if you've tried tapping into the visitor market. I went down to Stewart Island and was kind of keen to donate, and I didn't see any boxes or anything. It was, almost like a levy or just a friendly donation.
Well, we actually do have a visitor levy, and so there is a visitor levy, and its purpose though is to either provide infrastructure for visitors or mitigate the impact of visitors. We have been able to obtain some funding. So Emma, who put together that wonderful presentation, part of her role as the community liaison person is funded by the visitor levy, which is a fantastic asset because she's also awesome at GIS and making field maps work.
Yeah.
We do have a few donation boxes. It is, one could always do more. We've got a donation box at our native plant nursery, and we've got another one in the environment centre that we have in the bay between the Glowing Skies and the Foursquare.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And one at Eckers Point as well.
Yeah, actually, we do have an Iron Ranger out at Eckers Point. But if people are interested, you can sponsor a hectare or adopt a trap on our website.
I did see that, and I thought it was far too cheap.
It's hard to know how to price things, hey?
Yeah, because is it $50 a hectare?
It's $50 a hectare, and I think it's $40 a trap.
Nigel, did you have another question?
Yeah, I thought Alan had his hand up, but I'll go again. So the areas that you have cleared, I'm just wondering what the regrowth rate is like. Have you managed to get back into them to sort of check for any either bird spread?
We've been doing this long enough now that we're revisiting sites, probably some areas second or third times. I haven't crunched. I'm not a numbers person at all, but we haven't crunched the numbers on a kind of on a rate. And in fact, if you've got any data on how one would go about doing that, I'd be really interested to learn. Like, is it just a function of how many plants you find the second time, or?
Yeah, I don't think we've got any methodologies. Do you know, Keith? Have you seen anything?
No, I'm not aware of anything.
Some of the more recent work has been to go to areas where there were adult trees found and look for seedlings, and target those areas a bit.
Makes sense.
And do you, sorry to interrupt, but do you record that in your weed app? If there were adult trees?
Yeah, we record whether it's an adult, a juvenile, or a seedling.
Yep. How do you find, sorry, can I ask another question, please?
Absolutely.
How do you train your volunteers on the difference between a seedling and a juvenile? Because currently in CAMS, we only record the difference between mature and immature plants. And partly did that because that's what Bay of Plenty did, but also because of the difficulty of training people how to tell the difference.
Yeah, I think for the last one, we there was a guide that we printed off and gave to people.
Mm-hmm.
But from memory, the difference was once it starts branching out. So you're getting multiple stalks, I guess. I'm probably using all the wrong terminology here. I'm not a plant expert.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Brilliant. Alan, you had a question.
I'll ask, I'll just do a question or comment. How long do the seeds last? And secondly, in terms of spraying, I always say this because I love spraying. Spraying, I feel that having, one person or a few people on a team that can do the spraying just means that, like those areas where you had all the seedlings, you can, you can sort of do that in about 10 minutes. But of course, I would also want to comment, you need to be really careful what you spray. So I tend to get pretty carried away with metsulfuron, but it really is a biotoxin. If you overdo it, spray it near water, you can have some really negative effects. But used well, or doing some experiments with glyphosate, which is less of a less mobile and lasts long term. It binds with the soil. Maybe you could just go through those areas with a high dose of that and sort of knock them off. So, but also just wanted to say it's just so encouraging for all of us to hear a success. We all just bash away and you feel like you're smashing your head against a wall. To see such an impressively large areas cleared is just freaking amazing. Yeah, well done.
Oh, well, thank you, Alan, because I feel like I feel exactly the same. It feels like we just bash our head against the wall the whole time as well. And it's been a long few years with this one. That's good advice about, I think we would probably try, it would be glyphosate we were looking at rather than metsulfuron. And I think the reason we really haven't gone that route is because the kind of impression, the kind of received wisdom that we had was that, a good hand pull was the gold standard.
Also with landowners
a
too.
massive seedlings, you can just go for it, and just be careful, use surfactants and things like that. I mean, I always go with the bottom line is there's limited number of people. In the perfect world, we would never use chemicals, but we all know that the water is far bigger than that.
Yeah, and one of the bigger blocks where there was lots of the seedlings, the landowner would not have let us use sprays. We wouldn't have got his buy-in if we had gone down that route. So it's also balancing those things too sometimes. Yeah,
we're always constrained by what our least comfortable landowner is comfortable with. You can vary it a little bit, but in a really small community, you run the risk of kind of trust and goodwill. If you've told to somebody that you're not going to use spray on their land, but they hear that you're using spray somewhere else, that can be enough sometimes to push them into denying you access to the property. And environment sampling can require control, but it's a fairly blunt tool when we much prefer to work in a positive way with people. And we've got people, community's been amazingly on board, like people who won't necessarily let us trap on their property will let us come on and grid search for weeds.
Famous. Nigel, you had another question?
Yeah, there's more comments. So following on from Ian's discussion around electric chainsaws, we've been using the Stihl battery pruner. So it's basically a mini chainsaw without a chainsaw brake. So they don't call it a chainsaw because it doesn't have the brake components on it. The battery lasts maybe, I don't know, Darwin's Barberry is probably going to run out quite quickly, but it would save you a lot of work. We don't let any volunteer use it. It's only really trusted people who've been through a bit of certification and training. But yeah, certainly if you have people that are regulars, it might really cut your time down. It makes, for us cutting old man's beard, it more than doubles the speed that we work at. So it's been a really great tool for us.
That sounds amazing. I will look into one of those because as everyone, I'm sure it's the same for everyone. It's always easier to get funding for stuff, for gear, than it is for people.
I'll put a picture in the chat as well.
Bought one to play with.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We're definitely pruning for curious.
Yeah.
Al? Somebody with their hand up there?
That's me, Ellen.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks for the great talk. Fantastic work you're doing. The Rakiura is the only place I've ever seen a New Zealand native bat buzzing around a town. So I thought it was fantastic. Now, I might have dismissed it. You said you were using somebody to do some abseiling for you. Was that somebody from Kapiti?
Yes. So it is just one of those Kiwi things. Friend of a friend has a abseiling company. They came down for a wedding. their friend got chatting and was like, oh, we've got these cliffs, and he's like, oh, well, maybe we could do something. Yeah.
Right. I'm looking for somebody to do abseiling. So
I think it
it's,
was
yes.
Highline.
Highline rope access.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
They're amazing, and they know about weeds now. I mean, maybe they knew about them before, but now we really get them fired up about what a Darwin's barberry is and how they're gonna save the world.
Thanks.
One plant at a time. And I think that advocacy part of it is quite important. Keith?
Yep. Have you tried drone spraying as opposed to abseiling? Or is that because you don't spray?
We haven't really. It's probably because we haven't gone there with the spray, and we also haven't gone there with the drone yet either. So we're probably a little bit technologically backward in our part of the world.
We did try to get funding for a drone for monitoring, but did not manage to get that through.
And if I may have another question, I was trying to get our team to do a grid search this morning, and I failed abysmally in getting them to do a grid search. Have you got any advice as to how you can motivate and organise people to do a grid search, or do you have to pay them?
You got to pay them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've done one voluntarily, but I'm pretty weird.
I think some of the team got quite competitive too, which helped. But that was more about, I guess, personality types perhaps in the team as well.
Yes, I'm just letting you.
Oh, sorry.
You go.
I was going to have another question. Just looking at that peninsula, there must be a lot of hard to reach places. I'm assuming that it is steep down to the water. So is there do you have a long-term plan to get, I mean, that's a lot of rope work.
It's actually not as steep as it looks, and the bit so we've traditionally divided the area up into the tip of the peninsula being the core and the area of our biggest focus, and kind of the more pristine environment where the seabird nesting habitat is. So that's had the most effort. Actually, there's nothing. I mean, there's very little out there that's problematic now. It's more we're working much more back to the township, so it's not as bad as it looks.
Brilliant.
I can't see anything in the chat, so if there's any questions in the chat, if somebody could fire them through to me, that'd be cool.
There's just comments mostly about how many batteries you need for the saw, and how some people, even if you pay them, are not very good at grid searching. Ian, you had a question.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I use the Makitas. We have a few of them, and they're fantastic. I was surprised by the amount of effort you went into recording the number of seedlings, because when we're doing it, we're just pulling as fast as we can, and I can't imagine possibly counting them. So why did you bother, and how did you record them?
It wasn't that seedling number is not a highly accurate number.
Okay.
Like you would put, if you were in a real thick patch, I think we had a standard number. I can't remember what it was that you would put in for a patch. You'd put it in as 500 or 1,000 or whatever it was.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think we always wanted to record something because it was really linked to our funding agreement.
Yeah.
So it was a deliverable, especially with the Jobs for Nature thing. They were very keen on deliverables. So we sort of didn't want to undersell our effort. So that was why it was kind of important to us to record it, if that makes sense.
And we recorded both the Barberry and the trapping data in field maps.
Yeah.
Oh, can you tell me a bit more about field maps? What's that? Is that an app?
Oh, I'm gonna let you answer that one, Emma.
It's an app, and it can do amazing things, but it is also very complicated in the background. So I can do bits of it, but there are definitely parts of it that are beyond my pay grade, and we get assistance for some of that. But It's it runs ArcGIS, and so it's place based, and so it creates the maps. Unfortunately, that trapping map didn't come out great quality, but yeah, we have 2 separate maps, one for the Barberry and one for the trapping, and it also allowed us to track people as well. That was paid. Some of it we get through Half Moon Base School, because we also work with them on trapping lines, and so it makes it a bit easier as a charity to run it as well.
Yeah, there's a GIC, which is GIS Users and Conservation group as well, of people who are GIS trained but are also willing to either donate their time, or kind of people who are interns looking for projects to work on. They can be good to connect with.
Yeah, I was just looking up the company that Willie works for that runs it. One of our trustees helps. So we actually have someone local who does understand the system too, which is very useful.
Yeah.
Willie works for
Ethos
Ethos
GIS.
Environmental.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Of course, Ethos.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, Ethos.
Yeah, we do use iNaturalist a little bit. So more we would use the iNaturalist with our trapping volunteers who are maybe we're not tracking their efforts. So, I mean, they record their catches on field maps, but their use of it is quite kind of minimal, and we don't want to kind of introduce too much complexity. So often we get them to log a weed sighting that they've had on their trap lines in iNaturalist, and there's a pest, like a local find a pest project you can add it to.
I just had a question about the seeds. So if you're controlling it,
yeah.
you're obviously just dropping them and letting them rot on site. Do you find that the seeds, the fruit cause a lot of seedlings, or does it need the sun to germinate?
Well, we don't actually. We anything that's got seed we would take away and burn.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That must have been a lot of work.
As you get smaller, it gets less.
Yeah.
So obviously we're highly motivated when flowering season comes around. When we're controlling them and they're not flowering or setting seed, we would hang them upside down in another tree. Yep. And paste both in. As our practice, being careful not to hang them in a punga, because they can root into the bark of a punga or a tree fern. Provides enough humus, I guess.
Yeah.